We're here to solve the Skyscrapers puzzle by Sam Kappelman-Lines. The theme is 2, 3, 4 based off the outside clues, and we actually see this top row and bottom row of clues are the same. They're just rotated 180, so the star of the solve is going to have symmetric placements. 4 in from the top, 3 in from the bottom, the same 3 from the top, 4 from the bottom give these 6s, and also these obvious 6s. The key place for these opposite but same column clues will work out is actually where these sum up to be 7. That's one larger than the grid size. That means that every building gets seen and this building seen twice. It means they're effectively greater than symbols from the edge of the grid to the center. So one thing that means is that the 5 is not hiding any buildings. The 5 is right next to the 6. Here's a space I can't put a 5. It's 1 in from a 2 clue, which would mean that all 3 of these spots would be seen if this were a 5. So the 5 is here instead. On this side, we can't put a 5 in this cell because then only these 3 buildings, but not 4 buildings, would be seen in this whole column. So this is a 5. And one thing that lets me do is mark this coming up. 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4 is a forced chain. The cell to the right of the 2, 3 has to be larger than it. Actually, the cell as well has to be smaller than what's in here, so only 1, 2, and 3 can go in the cell. In the second column, we can do a similar thing, mark 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, and in front of this 2 will have to be a larger building than this building. So this is a 4, 5. If this is a 4, then the 5's on the opposite end of the grid, and we can think about what that means. But one thing it actually means is that we have to have smaller buildings in these cells. So I'll just mark this as like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 coming across. There's some other stuff we can do. This 4 will need to have a smaller building in front of this one. So this will see 1, 2, 3. We'll see this space, and then we'll see a 4 or a 5 in one of these cells, but not both. And there are some spaces where like a 5's in one of these 2 cells, a 5's in one of those 2 cells. There are some limits around the grid we can use. There's a crazy way you can make a little bit of headway actually in this row, and this won't get you through this puzzle, but I just want to talk through how you think about a situation like this. This 2, 3 is a middle value number, and it's in a space that only sees 3 buildings. So there are really just 2 scenarios. This is smaller than this, and if this is smaller than this, then this has to be larger than this. So where these are the 3 buildings seen, this must be something like 1, 2. This has to be 1, 2. This will be 3. This will be 4. So just kind of keep that in your head. And in the other situation where this is larger than this, then this is a 3. This is always a 2. This is a 4, and this is a 1. So across those, a few things are true. First, this cell only ever had a value of like 1, 2, 4, so there's a way a 3 doesn't go in here as magic. It doesn't do much, but sometimes this is a constraint you can use in a puzzle. It's also a constraint where this cell on the right can only be a 1 or 4. It can't be a 2 or 3, and that doesn't do anything at this stage of the puzzle. But it's one of the ways, as I explore skyscraper clues, I sometimes think about how the leftovers, where I've got a probably seen building influencing what's around it goes. But this isn't a puzzle that needs to use skyscraper hacking like I'm used to doing. This has a wholly different kind of elegant constraint for it. And again comes back to recognizing the second and fifth column have this sums up to 7 constraint. It means that in this first cell or in this last cell, the top row, bottom row, is where the 1 has to go. And where I don't know what that does in the second column, and I don't know what that does in the fifth column, collectively the 1's are in these red squares and nowhere else in those rows or columns. This is an X-wing in Sudoku sense, but set up really nicely in the skyscraper sense. And that means where a cell like this, I would typically be able to mark as 1, 2, 3 for the start of a 4. In this special puzzle from Sam, we can only make that be a 2 or 3. And down here, similar constraint, we can only make this be a 2 or 3. And this is what it took me some time to observe, but once I observed, was pretty sure was a key step for this puzzle to solve. And it now comes from recognizing something about this column. And with this needing to see 4 buildings, if a 3 is the first digit seen, then this will have the constraint of seeing 3, 4, 5, and 6. And so ask yourselves, can I place a 4 in this row before, sorry, a 4 in this column before I place a 5 in this column? Well, right now I can't. The only place I can place a 5 that would be seen by the cell is right down here. And if this 4 clue sees a 5, then there's no place to see a 4. This would be a big building, a hidden building, a 5, and a 6. And if a 5 goes up here instead, I can get a 4 in these cells, but I'm not getting a 4 behind a 5. There's no way this works out that's going to work with these adjacent clues. So long story short, where I can eliminate a 1 from the space from the X-wing, I can eliminate a 3 from the space from not being able to get a 3, 4, 5, 6 series visible. And putting this 2 puts in this one, puts in this one. It actually means this cell is going to be worth a 3, 4, puts a 2 up in this column. As I already described, if this first building is seen and this is seen, then we have to hide this, but that's not possible. So now this is a case where the 2 is hidden. So this is 3, 4, 6, 5, 1 as a forced block for that whole space. This 4 being seen from above means this is 2 or 3 with 4 with 5. This is the only place that 5 goes. This column now has 1, 2, so this is the only value for that cell is a 3, puts in a 2, puts in a 1. So those are just forced from limited options. This can still be a 3 or 4, but the 2 must be in this space. And seeing sort of where we've got a next spot, this 3 put in this 4, puts in this 3. So we've got some more eliminations. Actually, all these digits, 1, 2, 3, are eliminated from the cell. So this now is a 4, means this is a 5, means this is a 2, puts in a 3, puts in a 4. We've got 1 and 2 to finish this row. We have that one eliminating this digit. This now forced to be a 4, this be a 1. 5 and 6 in the bottom row, and now Latin square constraints to finish the top 4, 5, 3, and 6. To get through this puzzle. So hopefully got a good sense of some of the ways I look at skyscraper constraints, how I built up these either or chains and got some clues around them. Saw a cell like this that's also hidden from this and got some notations. But really, after I gave you a weird sort of story about this row, is looking at these cells and looking at a pattern set up by the maximal sums in columns 2 and 5 that force not just a 5 near the 6s, but also a 1 near the start and end of those series. And those 1s were a key elimination from the remaining cells to keep those options from working out, particularly in this column, but there might also have been some ways to work through this column once you saw that only a 2, 3 can be in those spaces. So really elegant design by Sam. Hopefully you got through this video a sense of what was needed to solve this puzzle, and we'll see you again soon.